Well, I can tell already this is going to be a fun episode of the Encounter Faith podcast, everybody. Because the voices you hear make up some of my favorite coworkers. So joining me today, if you're listening to the podcast, if you're looking at the device, going from your left to right, we have Ian Zamora. Hello, Ian.
What up, podcast?
Wow. We are off to a good start, as well as Jen Fosdick. Hello, Jen.
Hi.
And as my kids know her, LJ the Elephant. LJ, hello.
Yay. Hi, friends. Hi, friends.
Now, I start that way because one of the things that I hope before you listen to anything else, dear listener, is even though the four of us here are going to talk about some very important things and some potentially serious things, what I hope you get from this podcast is how relational and intentional our disability ministry is here at Good Shepherd, and why that matters so much for us, and also why we think it matters for the broader Naperville community. So where I want to start, Jen, I want to start with you, because although you've been here now for a couple of months, there's probably several people who listen who are like, wait, I think I know which Jen that is, but I could be wrong about which Jen. Could you help people understand a little bit of just what your previous experience was before you came to Good Shepherd?
Yeah, I'd love to. Prior to Good Shepherd, I worked in education for about 20 years. I started with general education and, of course, had kids in my classroom that their needs just weren't being met. So then I got a master's in special education. And my last position was at a therapeutic day school. My niche, like the thing that I love the most, my jam, is kids that you wouldn't necessarily know have a disability just by looking at them. But their needs are extremely high in the areas of social, emotional, anxiety, depression, sometimes autism, and they just don't fit in a box anywhere.
Right.
And so I fought for their right to take up space.
Yeah.
And I wanted to find a position that would let me do that while also incorporating faith.
Yeah. I love that. Now, we're so grateful that you're part of this team, Jen. Jen gets to lead our disability ministry. Ian, you are someone who most of the folks listening, because most of the folks listening go to Good Shepherd, they know you as a child.
Yeah, they do.
Several of them may have changed your diapers at one point. But
I just want to say here, Ian Zamora was in high school ministry when I was the high school ministry leader.
yes,
I sure was.
LJ, one of those people, not changing your diapers necessarily, but LJ was one of those people. But I'd start there because I want to very genuinely make a point. One of my favorite things about watching you in ministry is I like to talk about from communications here that you belong here. That comes out of your pores. Like, I have never seen anyone, adults, kids, every possible different version of the phrase ability, relax more than when you're having a conversation with them. Can you help people understand where the passion to serve this community came from, and ultimately like what sort of track you feel like you might be on while you're in school?
I am on a track to become a special ed teacher.
Woo! I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That is my goal. I also want to become a coach too, because I love sports. But that's a whole different topic.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's great. I think it's helpful for people. You know, one of the benefits of this podcast, if you are not someone who goes to Good Shepherd, but we say something that you have a question about or you want to learn more about, when you reach out to Good Shepherd and you hit the, info button, LJ is one of the people who get those emails. When you want to talk to the disability ministry folks and understand, you're going to talk to Jen and Ian. And one of the benefits of my seat is that I get to help kind of build some of these bridges for people who may not have that context or may have questions that they're not sure about. LJ, you get to serve first impressions. And dear listener, you don't know this, but actually I didn't give LJ a microphone because I figured wherever you're listening, you can hear her. But one of the reasons I wanted you to be a part of this conversation is you, in first impressions, you wind up meeting our families in those moments that I'm just describing, where they're going, wait, where do I go? Wait, what do I need? This other church said this thing and it proved not to be true. What I'm curious about for you, can you help people understand in first impressions what you hope people immediately pick up on even before they've met Ian or Jen or any of the other folks in our other ministries.
Oh, yes. I've had these experiences multiple times being up front on Sunday mornings, at the front door, as families are coming in. First 10 seconds of being on site, I want people to feel, oh, I do belong here. We have a space for you. We're glad you're here. That's the initial, thoughts and emotions we want every family or individual to feel when they're coming through our doors for the first time, for the 70th time, anytime. It's as the Father feels about them. We want to feel those, or we want people to feel those same things as they're coming through the door.
I love that. So, Jen, I want to come back to you here because one of the things that I think has always stood out to me about our disability ministry, wherever you're listening, dear listener, in the show notes, there's a link to a conversation that I had with the mayor of Naperville, Scott Worley, and he talked about the resources of this community. He talked about the partnering of this community. And yet, even though we know that there is relative to the general population, there's a higher concentration of folks in this area who have some sort of disability. We also know that there's lots of churches who aren't doing the kind of work that you and Ian do every day.
Which blows my mind.
Blows my mind too. But to ask you a slightly less leading question, one of the things that I'm curious about is the consistency. We're about to celebrate our 15th year of this ministry.
Hold for applause.
Hold for applause. Can you speak to the value of consistently showing up for families in this ministry? Because it's something that I think we do really well, but I imagine as you've come into your seat, you're able to see what this has meant to our community.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like in my experience, I can't think of a church that I've been to that really focuses on having a disability ministry as a priority. And I've been to a lot of churches. I've been a Christian since I was 5. I've lived in Naperville since I was 4. So when I found out about Good Shepherd's ministry, I felt like, for lack of a better term, a divine calling that I needed to be here because it matters to me to support our families, not only through their child's education, but through the ministry, so that the whole family gets support and gets to access God's love and God's teaching. And so that is what I love about Good Shepherd. Before I even came here, I heard that Good Shepherd was, one of the leading churches in the area to be able to provide this for families. And immediately I was like, well, that's where I want to be. I want to do that too. And since being here, I've had a handful of one-on-one conversations with parents. And I just love hearing their story, hearing the struggle that they went through, both finding a school placement and finding a church. And now they feel like their child does belong here. Yep. And they feel this church family is an extension of theirs. And so I just want to grow that and have as many people in Naperville and the surrounding areas get to feel that same feeling with all of their kids.
I love that. So I'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the fact, like, part of this conversation is going to feel a little inward focus for Good Shepherd, and that's not my intention. So can you help folks understand, when we talk about the disability ministry here, what are we talking about? What are some of the things that make up this ministry?
Yeah. Obviously it starts with the desire and the belief that everyone is deserving.
We invite everyone, and we mean everyone.
Yes. When we say our church is for everyone, I really want that to be true. I don't want a single person to walk through the door and feel like we couldn't meet their needs. And as a, former educator, that has always been my passion. So I think the ministry itself is willing to do whatever it takes to meet someone where they are and provide what they need. And if there is something that they need that we're not doing, I'm so open to hearing what that is and finding a way to provide that. And I think any disability ministry, really, if you just focus on the needs and providing what they need, everything else will fall into place.
Yeah. So on a Sunday morning, we're able to offer both a level of understanding and compassion in any of our ministry spaces. We're also able to offer one-on-one support for kids and anybody. We're also able to offer on our Sunday nights for our student ministry, on our Tuesday nights for our preteen ministry, for certain different ministry events, we're able to offer that same kind of one-on-one support. It builds relationships. It's this wonderful sort of thing, even in my 3 years here, that I've seen organically grow. I think about our student ministry, and one of the things I like to say about our students is, if you're a student not serving with the disability ministry, you're kind of the weird one. And the students there do it not from like a community service mindset. It's just in the water. Like, it's just one of the many ways in which that ministry makes a big impact. But my favorite thing that I see happen all the time, and I've seen happen even more frequently since you've gotten here, is the ways in which folks from our disability ministry can take sort of a center stage aspect. You guys recently did this sensory-friendly worship night. And one of the coolest things for me was watching us do a fairly non-labor intensive thing. You guys made a space, and that members of that community showed up to fill it in whatever way God was calling them to fill it. There's a lot of folks who are listening who want that type of thing, but they've met roadblocks, or they've had people say well-intended things that have come off the wrong way, or people have shown up briefly and not been able to continue to show up. When you look ahead to what you hope to be able to grow here, I'm curious, what are the types of sustainable support that you are hoping to be able to offer here that we can build off of this foundation?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I really want to help kind of drive is how we perceive our individuals with disabilities in service, or in Sunday nights, or in Tuesday nights. Because I think a lot of times disability ministry has been a separate support.
Sure.
So if you're having a hard time in service, or you're being loud, or you're pacing, people have offered, oh, let's go take a walk, let's go take a break. And my goal is, well, how can we just make that part of the service, or part of the normal culture?
Yeah.
That people do get up and pace, or people do clap or make noise. And that's just part of how they worship. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
And I think we have a lot of congregants with the heart and the open mindset for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. And so I just want to continue to expand that it's not so much providing a support in a separate place with separate things. It's more about shifting our mindset as to what the societal norms are.
I love that.
For this population.
Ian, one of the other kind of pillars of your guys' ministry is you're able to do a buddy break. Can you help folks understand what buddy break is, but more importantly, the type of value and the way that you're able to show up for families?
Yeah, so Buddy Break is a once a month respite program. We do it from 9 a.m. to noon on Saturday mornings. We open up the entire bottom floor. We have the gym that we fill with balls and scooters. We have 2 ball pits that we put out and set up. A Wii room. We have a movie that we play halfway through that kids eat their snacks during that time. We got basically everything. Yeah. Everything that you could possibly want if you're a kid to hang out and have fun for 3 hours. Something that I have learned doing buddy breaks is just how valuable that time is for parents, because there's not a lot of times or programs where they can drop their kid off and have 3 hours back to themselves.
Yeah.
And that on a weekend too. Mm-hmm. And that is so important. And I've had so many conversations with parents who are just like, I was able to take a nap and that was the best Saturday morning I could ask for, or I can go run all the errands that I need to run. And, it's been very eye-opening, talking to parents and realizing how hard it is to raise a kid,
Yeah.
And how much harder it is to raise a kid who has a disability, and
Sure.
the fact that parents really don't get a break.
So I want to specify
Can I
too.
chime in too,
Of course.
Ross? The other thing I love about Buddy Break that I haven't seen other places do is the siblings get to be a part of it.
Exactly what I was going to say.
And good. I think there are so many accommodations that siblings make for their sibling with a disability.
Sure.
And it can be at times a burden for the sibling. And so we want siblings to feel just as important. So they get paired with buddies too. And it's for them just as much as it is for their brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So that all the kids get to feel the love and care and hear that God loves them and make this a special, fun event for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's why parents can then use it as respite because all their kids are here.
Yeah. LJ, I want to talk to you here because I want to take a second so we can just talk about how awesome Jen and Ian are because they're not listening right now. They're not listening right now. Because one of the other things that I think is true about Buddy Break is there's just not even a lot of churches around here that do that at all.
Again,
And mind blown. And there's also not a lot of churches who do the type of sustained relational work that you're hearing Jen and Ian describe, dear listener. One of the things I'm curious about when you're meeting those families, I imagine there's a level of almost perception correction that has to happen because I think about a story that everybody in this room knows really well, but recently a friend of mine winds up bringing his brother who's an adult and he had a lot of questions. And eventually I had to say to him, look, man, I can't stress to you how little effort we're making to allow to allow your brother to show up exactly how God made your brother, because this is just what we do here.
Yeah.
We don't, and it's not, I was like, in the best way I can say this possible, it's not a big deal because this is what we do here. I would imagine sometimes you're having to make sure families understand that same kind of thing, that their child, or their adult in their life is not only not a burden, but very specifically welcome.
Yes.
What does that look like?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Almost to the point where we are ready for you.
Yeah.
We're ready for you to walk through the door. And it's something I've seen over and over, even in our special events too. We do VBS in the summer. It's a week-long program, Monday through Friday, morning or afternoon. And our disability ministry comes alongside and buddies with any and all students that participate. And I don't want to just say we serve students, elementary, middle school, high school, but young adults as well. This ministry is ready for any and all families with disabilities come through the door because they're worthy. God has created them in His image, and not only do all people need to hear this message, but all people, all ages need to know this truth. And I think our disability ministry is prepared and ready to share that message with any of the ages that come through the door, whether it's on a Sunday, whether it's a Sunday night, Tuesday night, Saturday mornings, whatever comes in the future. Yeah, they're ready. They're ready.
Love that. Because, and Jen, I want to come to you because one of the things that I think allows us to say we're ready is folks like you who also have this passion of expanding the visibility of the congregation to what it even means to be a part of a disability managed community. This came up in the conversation I had with the mayor a lot because he's a very strong mental health advocate. He's clearly very concerned about the teens and students that make up Naperville, kids and students that make up Naperville, I should say. But when you are wanting to include folks with anxiety, depression, ADHD, you said earlier, making sure no one feels like they have to stay in a box. As someone with ADHD, it is often easier for me to treat it like it's a thing that I have to get over rather than understanding that that's just how my brain works. What does it look like for you in the minister position you sit in to help other people understand that, whether they're a part of this community or not?
Yeah. I think that goes back to just kind of what I was referencing as far as not always being able to tell that someone is dealing with something. And I had a student one time who was really down on themselves about having ADHD. And I said, you know what? I do too. And they were shocked and couldn't believe like somebody in a position of leadership and could function with it. And I started to tell them some things about ADHD that are kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I, the other student had autism, and they started to share things about autism that are cool.
Love that.
And I think a lot of times kids and adults only see the negative. Like our brains, the neuroscience is that we are naturally inclined to see the negatives.
Sure.
And we have to work at it to notice the positives as well. And so I think helping children and young adults see their strengths is a great way to kind of combat some of those mental health challenges. But I love what serving can do for some of our tweens and teens who might be struggling with mental health. They may not have a good group of friends or support system at their school, but then they come to church and they have this little family and they get to help someone else.
Yeah.
And when you're in the midst of doing that, it is really hard to be kind of stuck in a depression funk.
Sure.
And so I just think, that is something in the past when I struggled with depression.
Sure.
That was something that was recommended to me at the time. And I cannot say enough good things about how helping other people also helps you.
Yeah. Jen, this is your first podcast, but that was a great transition because where I want to begin to land the plane here is to talk about serving, because I've told this story on the podcast before, but dear listener, my uncle, as someone who has autism, was the person who invited me to church. So everything I have, I owe to my uncle with a disability. And one of the things that always fires me up about this conversation is people who, again, are very often well-intended, but naturally wind up creating a level of distance between themselves and the community. If I said to you, hey, Jen, who are you looking to serve in disability ministry? I now know you well enough to know that your answer is anyone and everyone. If I'm not quite sure if I know what I'm doing, if I'm a little nervous about it, if I have genuine questions, how do you help folks break down those walls to understand that exactly how God made them is the exact right person to serve this community of people who is exactly how God made them?
Yeah, totally. I think people get so scared that they don't have the right training and they don't have tools and they don't have strategies. And guess what? All you need is love. Like, that's so cheesy, but It's so true. Like, just show up as your genuine self and God will do the rest. And I've seen so many people who didn't think they could ever work in this field just take one little step, like the faith of a mustard seed.
Hey.
And it just flourished. And they decided, oh, wow, I actually love this. And this is the career path I'm going to go down. And so I think just being brave enough to take that little step, that's all you need. You don't need anything else. I don't care if you ever went to high school, college, whatever. Like, just be brave and show up and say, I'm here to help, and we'll figure out a way to make it work.
And Ian, that was quite literally part of your story. One of the other things that I know that you all do a very intentional job of is if someone is new to, let's say, Buddy Break, you're very intentional about who they are a buddy for.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think it's also helpful for people to hear, again, forgive the bad pun, but the wide spectrum of folks who show up for Buddy Break requires a wide spectrum of folks to be buddies.
Oh, yeah.
Can you help folks understand, you as a leader, the type of intentionality you try to help create in order to build these relationships?
Yeah. So like you said, we have a lot of different types of people who come to volunteer. So me knowing a good amount of them personally, I know what they're interested in. I know their strengths, and that allows me to say, hey, I know the perfect kid for you.
Right.
You are going to be playing basketball in the gym for 3 hours today.
Right.
Or you're going to be coloring, and then you're going to watch the movie, and that'll be your morning.
Yep.
So just being able to know the volunteers that we have, as well as knowing the kids that we have, just allows me to make friends.
Yeah. And I go there because I do want people to understand how simple that is. Because I think dear listener, this has been my entire lived experience. If you are ever looking to enter, let's be honest, any community, there's likely someone who's already either serving, leading, or a part of that community directly who would love to build a bridge for you. We have to be careful about how we do that. We can't come in thinking that we're going to change things, or that can get problematic in certain cases. But what I hope you just highlight something Ian said, dear listener, is like, he just is here to help you make friends. And we can talk all day about how valuable what you guys do is for families who are part of the disability ministry. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't speak to how valuable, to what you were saying, Jen, serving this community is to you personally. I'm curious if you guys have stories of folks who maybe were kind of that skeptical person in volunteering, who now are the first person to say yes, the first person to sign up, like your biggest advocates. Do you have any of that type of journeys that you can talk about?
I think one comes to mind. I had a younger middle schooler who doesn't like kids.
Love that.
Okay.
And I was like, but you're going to do this and you're going to be great. And after 2, maybe 3 times of helping, they came away and said, oh my gosh, I just love kids. I was like, see, that's all it took. Like,
that's awesome.
You think you don't love kids because you've never tried this. Yeah. But really, like Buddy Break, you're just going to come have fun. It's like a sleepover, and except for the uncomfortable sleeping part. So,
sure.
So just come have fun. Sure. Who wouldn't like that?
Right. LJ, I want to bring it back to you here, because I also think one of the important things for people to pay attention to is how the disability ministry connects to the mission of what we do here, and ultimately all the other ministries of what we're talking about. You are someone who knows so many of our families really, really deeply. What I'm curious about is families who maybe came in, I'm thinking of a couple right now, but feeling like that they could only participate in a certain way. And the work that the disability ministry has done has allowed them to go, oh, all of my family can show up here all the time, whenever it makes sense for us, because this is what they do.
Yeah, because what's the mission? To invite everyone to walk together in the calling of Christ for a life of eternal impact. When Jesus called his people, he called all people. Man, all walks of life. And that's something I know is such a desire for our disability ministry, that it doesn't matter what's going on at home, what happened in the car ride there, they're ready. We're ready. We're wanting to be a church, a place where all people feel welcome and seen and heard, because we all have needs. I have needs. We all have needs, different needs. And I think Good Shepherd's a place where we try to identify unreached people with different needs. And so there will continue to be even new ministries trying to serve people that are underserved here in worship communities. But I think, with Jen and Ian leading the efforts here of serving families with disabilities, it's humbling to see. It's a beautiful picture of the hands and feet serving these families.
100%. Jen, where I want to leave things is exactly what LJ was describing to, which is, this is not something, although this has been an incredibly successful ministry, it's been 15 years. Both you and Ian are not going, yep, we got Sunday mornings, events, and buddy breaks. Those are our 3 pillars, and we're done. Way to go, everybody, right? You're constantly thinking about ways to expand, ways to grow, ways to serve more deeply, ways to connect more people. I would love for us to be a church, just to say this very bluntly to folks who are listening from Good Shepherd still, I would love for us to be a church that the expectation is there's 12 buddy breaks a year. Which one are you serving at every single person who calls this place home?
Yes, please.
I would love to be able to have us show up that way. But I recognize there's a lot of ways and inroads to draw to help people get there. One of which you're trying to work on right now is helping us become a more accommodating to the deaf and hard of hearing community. This is very early on, dear listener. As you're hearing this, Jen and I were in a meeting about this about an hour ago. So less practical and more aspirational. But can you speak to, one, why that matters, and two, what you're hoping to see here at Good Shepherd?
Yeah. Well, from that meeting, I learned a statistic that just blew my mind. 70 million people are deaf around the world, and 2% of them know the love of Jesus and know about the gospel. Mm-hmm. And that just kills me. And so when I was thinking about what I believe to be our mission and my goal of being a church where literally everyone belongs, I was thinking of what is a population that we currently aren't serving, mm-hmm. and how do we serve them?
Yeah.
And so that is how this Deaf Friendly Church mission came about. And I'm so excited to be talking about it and the direction that we're hoping to go, and add that to the things that we can offer at Good Shepherd, so that literally everyone in the community knows if I go to Good Shepherd, no matter what my things are or my needs are, they will meet them. Because ultimately, I want everyone to know about God. And so we got to make that possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really excited about the work that you're doing. I know the worship team's been involved too about some of these initial conversations, because one example of this for me, I came from an organization that does some advocacy work for kids in foster care. And they had this story of a kid who was in a shelter who was on track to be like a valedictorian in his high school, but he was in a shelter because he was deaf. There was very minimal other behavioral challenges. Like there was no other outstanding or particularly easy to point to things in his quote unquote file of why he was in foster care, other than the fact that he was deaf. And they just didn't have parents who were fluent in ASL who could accommodate that, right? And that is an indictment on society, because that kid shouldn't grow up in a shelter because of that. And I think similarly, when the church hears about there's a population out there that 2% of people are reached, every church should go, okay, I can't hire a couple of people. I can't build a sensory room. I can't, like, whatever, like, there's a practical resource as part of that conversation. I want to acknowledge that. But every single one of you listening can do something. Even if it's just something as simple as taking this podcast and sending it to someone who you think could help you move the ball forward in whatever your context is. So, end of soapbox for me. I really, really appreciate the time, guys. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this ministry in particular continues to flourish as Good Shepherd continues to flourish. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Woo! Woo!
Thank you for listening to the Encounter Faith podcast. This podcast is a service of G. Shep Productions from Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Naperville, Illinois. All rights reserved. If you're in the area, we'd love to meet you on a Sunday morning at our 9 a.m. or 10:45 services. At Good Shepherd, we are inviting everyone to walk together in the calling of Christ for a life of eternal impact. This podcast is produced and hosted by me, Ross Cochran. And our theme song is Wake the Earth by 1111 Worship. Thank you for listening. We'll talk again soon.